My name is Jackson Waters, and this is the Little Room Podcast. This is a podcast where each episode I talk to different strangers whom I've never met before and talk about music. I'm Jackson Waters, like I said before. I'm a trumpet player and classical composer going to study concert composition at NYU. And today we have Senaida Ng from Toronto, Canada. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so I have some notes, or like the questions that you wanted to talk about, like the topics. And so I was like looking at them and they were like really cool, and that's why I like picked it. But the one that really like hit me, like kind of made me laugh a little bit, was how classical music industry has affected like our music today. And like it kind of made me laugh because like my sophomore year I did like a presentation on why like the romantic era, like the romantic composers like created the four chord pop like sequence. And like that just made me laugh a little bit because yeah. So I kind of want to like talk about more about that and just see like where we can end up. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, so like as more of a classically trained now like pop writer, I think the four chord progression is just something that is like literally everyone can do
Yeah,
now. So
exactly.
all of that classical training, I'm like, where did that go? Like what happened to
Yeah,
complex chord?
exactly. Yeah. And so on my essay thing, so like like you think music is a language, correct?
hmm
Yeah. So in a language like in like the 1700s in our English, it was so proper, and like they talked so like proper and fancy and stuff like that, and now we just talk so much slang. And I feel like music, and like definitely in like the more like popular sense, has definitely gone that same route. And so like on my essay, or like on my presentation and stuff, like I did some research, and it was like it all started. I'm not gonna say it all started with Tchaikovsky, but like in Tchaikovsky's, he like wrote this like harmony book, and like Franz Liszt like wrote this piece called Lebestrom, and they both consisted of this like romantic era progression. And then each like era, from like romantic to like polka music, or and going down to like I don't know, just going down the eras, like all those chords were like, it became like really complex, but then they all went down to the four chords, but like they all consisted of like the same consistency. So like Lebestrom by Liszt, it was like the 1 3 6 2 5 1, and then like the Hello My Baby was like 1 4 2 5 1, but like in some of them were minor. So like they just switched it up, but it all like progressed to the same thing, and I thought that was like really really cool. But like in a way it just kind of stinks because all pop music just sounds the same, and
Yeah.
I feel like it could just like branch off into something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think we see that a lot more with soul music now.
Yeah.
Like it's starting to kind of move to more complex chords, and if you look at someone like Jacob Collier,
Oh,
he's like trying out all these
yes.
really cool things. But like I think it in a way it allows people who don't have that like musical theory knowledge
Yeah.
to write, but it yeah, definitely like you said, it makes everything sound the same. So
Yeah.
like moving forward, we should definitely try to incorporate, I guess, more elements of classical music back into pop music.
Yeah. And so what I was thinking when I read that your like topic, I was thinking like one of the first things was what I said, like the romantic starting like the four chord pop sequence. But then I was like thinking like lo-fi chords were taking like dominant sevens and more jazz progressions. So I feel like, and then like lo-fi has become really popular to like study, and people are becoming way more interested. And I feel like people copying those like basic jazz chords, that can lead into more complexity later on into modern music. So and then like you said with Jacob, so his new song came out like called All I Need, and that was like really poppy. Like it for him, it's like never simple. Like he always has like some sort of like goofy thing, but like the groove and like the chords weren't actually as complex as usually they are until like the end when it goes into like half flat or whatnot. Um, but I feel like he is one of like the only people who can branch from like pop listeners and to like more like music theory and musician listeners who appreciate more complex and more different music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah,
have
what
you?
were you saying?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was thinking was like, have you heard Wolfpack?
Oh, yes.
Like the Bach vision test,
Yeah.
like fugal state, like that stuff is literally borrowing from
Yeah.
classical and then taking it into a whole new like realm.
It's like bands like those who really like take a groove that everyone can enjoy, but then use like their little sporadic like little like add-ons and incorporations to make it a little more complex. And I feel like the if we slowly do that, and people will be more welcome to it. If we start off like going into like contemporary like Hindemith or something like that, everyone's just gonna be like no. But people like Jacob Wolfpack, a little bit of Corey Henry too, if you know him, like they're kind of just slowly just incorporating pop, jazz, and classical all together. So I feel like I feel like in a couple years we can be a lot more unified in like the language of music.
For sure, for sure. Wait, so then what are your thoughts on like genres? Like different genres dividing up music, or should it just
Well, it
all
definitely shouldn't be
be?
because like music is way too vast to be universal. And I've had a lot of disagreements of whether or not music is universal or not, but I don't think it is because it's just so vast with different things. And so no, I don't think it should be in one genre, but I feel like people should be more welcoming to other genres. And so I'm not saying make everything more simplified, but I feel like everyone should be more aware of all the other things that are going on musically. Like there's like I was studying like a year ago I was studying like Cameroon, the African like rhythms of Cameroon, and it was like 9/8, but like the patterns were different, and it was hard. It was hard. First, it was hard to get a groove because you usually feel it in 3, but this one you feel it in 4 and 3 depending on who you are. It's crazy, and I just feel like taking stuff from those and just incorporating into your music and just have people like just understand that knowledge of that there's more to music than 4 chords or just a 2 and 4 beat or something like that. So no, I don't think it should be placed into one universal thing because it's just way too vast. But I feel like people need to understand that there's more to music than just 4 chords or just even our just intonation. Like I feel like just people should understand that there's a lot more to music than just that.
Well, I think part of it is because we both like grew up in North America and we're always surrounded by like North
Yeah.
American music. Like I last year my band went to Spain and we got to experience a lot more like Spanish music and learn about that stuff. And honestly, there's so many similarities when you look at it, and I guess it's easy to kind of combine those two. Well, I don't want to say it's easy, but I think in a way that we should be combining different genres like fusion.
And I feel like Jacob does that really well to just do that for like the masses. Yeah. So would you like? When did you go to Spain?
I went last summer, yeah. So like my concert band was touring for the World Association for
Oh, snap.
Bands. We went to Buñol, which is like close to Valencia, and then after that I went to Berkeley, Valencia.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Our band went to Rome last winter, and that was pretty cool. We got to march in the like New Year's Day parade, and yeah, and then the really cool thing when we were like walking down the streets, we just hear like jazz and like it's just the jazz standards, and it's like really cool because like me and my friend were both like we all know like the jazz standards and stuff like that. So when we were listening, they were playing, oh man, like maybe like Anthropology or something like that, and it was just really cool to see how much like genres have blown up into other locations. And I feel like in a way America's or like North America is pretty restricted on what kind of cultures of music they let in. And I feel like that's kind of like made us a little more like just straightforward four chords pop songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that was the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was like representation in our music industry, right? Like right now we've seen BTS like top the charts and like K-pop coming in to America more. But overall, like the representation is definitely still not there. Like I think there's so many great musicians who are like American, but they're people of color, and
Yeah.
there definitely should be more opportunities for people like that to come into the industry. Because like when I'm thinking of people in studios and like the composers who like the big names, people who go to all the time, it's like always the old white dude.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I agree with that. And the music industry, and I feel, yeah, music industry is pretty brutal, I'm gonna be honest. And the thing that's strange for me is I have like two things that's kind of strange, but like kind of cool in a way, that like you don't really need an education, a formal education, to like make it big. Like that's I feel like like making it into the music industry is like maybe, let's say 50, like maybe 60% skill and then 40% or maybe even 45% connections. Like if you got the skill but nobody to like talk to, then it's just kind of useless. And yeah, that's kind of because like you can get your doctorate degree in music composition but make $20,000 a year and always be in debt. But then this kid with a keyboard can make a like one-hit wonder and make 20 million off of it. And it's just kind of strange how like the music and movie industry works.
Yeah. But I think a lot of that relies on luck too.
Yeah, definitely.
Just out of nowhere. Like, I don't know. Because one of the things that I've been thinking about is like how young artists are now when they come out. Because there's this idea where it's like, oh, you don't need to have formal training and you can just come out and immediately start working and like making music, right? Because you don't need an education technically. Music, it's just your emotions. But at the same time, it's like, how do you manage after that? After your one-hit wonder is no longer a hit, and like, how do you recover from that? What do you do afterwards?
I thought about that. Like the where are they now?
Yeah. So definitely, like, education is still an important part of being a musician, but it's not how, like, it doesn't determine how good of a musician you can be.
With composition, I like to incorporate it like with writing a book or something like that. If you have the idea, you can write a book. If you can speak, you can write the book. You just need that creative part. The grammar is what helps you write the book, but you can have someone to help you with the grammar or something like that. That you can make little edits later on. The grammar can help you write a book better, but if you have an idea and if you listen to music, I feel like you don't really have that much restriction. But I think it is better to study the grammar, like the music theory, with like writing, because it can help you create something more than what your mind like is usually set with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like music is just complex. Like people can just. Oh, actually, what I was thinking, what are your thoughts about like guitarists who like play chords and stuff like that, but only read tablature and like don't know like how to understand notes or something like that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm not a guitarist, but I'm guessing, are you?
I play bass, but like a little bit. I'm a trumpet player.
Well, I'm a pianist, right? And like we mostly got to know how to read notes and stuff, because it's a really important part of not just being a pianist, but like accompanying and all the different skills. But like for guitar, I think it's so much easier for someone to just pick it up and learn tablature, but then afterwards you can always learn notes.
Yeah, but like for me it's a little annoying because when I'm like talking to like guitarists and I'm like, hey, can you play that A? And they're like, A? And I'm like, are you kidding me? That kind of gets a little bit annoying. Like, I know I have some stories of like people like, I don't want to like say guitarists, but some guitarists like going into like a jazz band or something like that, and when they play, they can't read the notes or really like solo on the jazz chords because they're not used to it. They're used to just reading the tablature and like where to put their fingers. And like tablature is like are like baby steps, but I feel like if like with the rest of us, we're kind of thrown into like what are notes and how do we incorporate notes and like how do we correspond with our fingers. I feel like tablature kind of, I don't want to say ruined it for guitarists, but made it harder for guitarists to like prosper into something bigger, because usually when you have like the guitarist, you think of like a college guy on like sitting on a tree just playing the same four chords.
I think it's the same with like producers as well. Producers who don't know any music theory, they don't even know what chords they're playing. They're
They're
just
just kind
kind
of
of laying
grooving with
down
it,
on those
and they
chords.
make 40 million and it's a little
Yeah.
annoying, not gonna lie.
Yeah, like one time I was in a studio and like the producer literally did not know the chords and we were just like trying to figure out what note was like what. And I think it takes longer. It just makes everything really inefficient, that stuff. And it's the same with like playing guitar. Like if you don't know the notes but you can still play it by ear, then yeah, that's a great skill to have, but it's just a lot more inefficient.
And I, you see, we were talking about the master classes earlier, like with Hans Zimmer and stuff, and I get advertisements on YouTube about like the Dead Mouse master class on like producing or making EDM, and all he has is like a keyboard, like not even like a piano keyboard, but just like a normal just keyboard like this, and then he just like pressing like keys down, and then it already has like arpeggiators and stuff like that doing it for him. And I feel like that's just like really cheating the process of making music. And like they can go out and do that and it's like art, but I feel like it's just cheating themselves. That like he was even said, he's like, if I knew how to play piano this would be so much easier, but I don't, and so I have like this keyboard and stuff. And I feel like the technology of like synths and stuff, like electronic synths and plugins and stuff like that, really make it really cheat the person who's trying to make music.
Well, I think that's really interesting though. That's something I think about a lot as a producer, because I want to eventually be able to make tech that like helps musicians to create music faster and like easier. And the thing about stuff like arpeggiators, it's like, yeah, I know how to play an arpeggio versus someone who just presses down one note
I
and
made a song.
yeah, and like the whole scale like played
Yeah.
for them. It feels super annoying. I have all this knowledge and I'm not able to use it because it's just everybody can.
And it just feels like you're just one all that like 10 years, like for me personally, 10 years of studying music, and then once I'm in the music industry, I'm thrown in the same batch of the person who's never touched a music like piano, trumpet, bass, or whatnot, and they're in the same level as I am. And I think that's just a little bit unfair personally, because of like technology. And when I like this, the past couple months with like this quarantine and stuff, I've been trying to like go on like Logic, and because I'm a classical composer, I'm trying to get into more like electronic and try to like diversify my music ability. So I've been trying to produce, and so like as I'm producing, I've come to realize, and I've had a little bit more respect for producers and stuff like that, because for me personally, I like to write, and I have, like, let's say here, I have staff paper, or whatever you want to call it, and that's how I write. And so when I'm looking at like Logic and it's just like MIDI tracks and stuff like that, that's really hard for me personally, because my process is completely different. And so, but when I'm like looking with like electronic like synths and stuff, I've actually like became a lot more knowledgeable about synths and stuff. And like the not only it like it doesn't, I've learned that it doesn't truly cheat the system of like music making, but it's a really cool texture that that can be added. But some people abuse it and use it for like their own, like purely just to help them make music, if that makes sense. Not as a texture, but as like a relying on to make music.
Yeah, but I guess here's the thing though, because like we're trying to move constantly towards like efficiency and like like all the technology that we're making. Like before Logic, it was like you do, like writing by hand and or like MuseScore and stuff.
Yeah,
Like people
MuseScore.
used to have to just write all the stuff by hand and you don't even know how it sounds. And so we're trying to just create technology that is able to help people create the things they want to create faster. And in a way, yes, it's like we have all this knowledge and we can't use it because it's already there. But at the same time, I think it does help you create faster and like explore different things. So in a way, like pop music or like all music in general now should be moving towards not just like building off of arpeggios and stuff, but like the texture and the timbre of the sound and like how you create those things, how you manipulate those things, how you like change it to make it unique to yourself. And it's no longer just about the compositional aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And yeah, so we were talking about like the different processes of like producers and composers and stuff. So would you consider yourself more of a producer or more of like a classical composer? Because like I know you play piano and stuff like that, and I've seen some of your stuff that you've written and you like say you're a producer. So like what's your process in like, let's say if you were just like writing a song or something like that?
My process is definitely I focus a lot on like melody and harmony because that's what my classical brain wants to do.
Yeah,
It wants to
exactly.
really dig into the music part of it, which is why I consider myself more of a producer than a
Yeah,
songwriter. I'm not that great with lyrics. Like when inspiration
I feel
hits,
that.
I'll have lyrics, but if not, then I usually don't write lyrics a lot. Um, but yeah, definitely more of a producer just because I don't compose as much classical music as I do produce like contemporary pop music. Um, and like when I'm composing versus when I'm producing, it's like a whole different like
Mindset.
process
Yeah.
because yeah, I never produce in Logic
What
or
do you?
I never compose in Logic.
Oh yeah, no, I don't
Yeah,
compose
I
in Logic.
produce in Logic.
Yeah,
But yeah, I can't. I know some people do it, but I would rather see the notes on the page and like
exactly. That
the staff.
same here.
So
So
yeah,
what's your like your process when you have like an idea in your head? Like how do you like put that on paper? Or how do you like move along with the song or something like that?
I
Because
usually sit down at the keyboard. Yeah, I'll record something, and then just sort of see where it goes from there.
how about like mental blocks and stuff? Like how do you keep getting inspired to keep moving? Because that for me that's like really rough. Like when I'm like writing a piece, I'm like maybe like 50 measures in, and I'm like I can't do this anymore. Like I
Oh
just
my
get
god.
stuck for months. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm literally in a mental block right now. Like quarantine has got me like no inspiration at
Yeah.
all. Like can't write at home. But um definitely put it aside, I
Oh
would
yeah,
say,
definitely.
and then just come back to it later. Like I was working on a song maybe 2 years ago that I like recorded a demo and everything for, and then I just decided that I didn't like it anymore and I put it aside. And then recently I was talking to a friend and he was like, "Oh, I'm interested in recording like that song," because I let him listen to it. And then I brought it back out and I was like, "Wow, I actually really love this song."
Yeah.
So like now we're gonna put it on my EP.
Hey, congrats. Yeah, so that's kind of the same thing for me. Like I was last year, I started writing this wind ensemble piece, and I was going for it, and like I was hitting, I was like doing great, and then maybe in like this was maybe like a year and a half ago, and then maybe like in March of my sophomore year, I just completely stopped. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to just take a break. And I actually took like maybe 2 or 3 months off of it because it was so frustrating to keep going. Because it was hard because I used the Cameroonian dance, which is not really a Western type of feel, a Western culture type of feel. So it was very hard to incorporate it into a wind ensemble piece. And so just to get ideas, like melodic ideas based off of a rhythmic thing, which I'm not used to at all. Like you do, I usually do like melodic stuff first and then like rhythms. Or like the rhythm of the background or whatnot. And this one I started with the rhythm, and that was really hard to get like melodic stuff in and just keep going. And so it wasn't until like college started popping up and I was like, okay, I really have to finish this. Um, but yeah, no, just taking breaks just really helps me. And yeah, like for like a lot of people who are like starting like to write music and stuff like that, it's really easy to get an idea, but it's really hard to like focus that idea into something bigger, and just to keep that patience. And like patience is like the biggest thing with like creative making, like composer, producer, musician or not, like just being patient with it, because it's a long process. Like no matter what you're doing, like producer, EDM, whatnot. Yeah, it's a long process.
Yeah. I think like you can always keep working at it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, of
in
course.
a way, uh, I'm such a perfectionist, and I feel like at some point you just need to be happy with the results and just like stop.
Yeah, that's the thing when I'm talking to my friends who are trying to like start composing or producing. The thing about it is, like, I use Dorco as my notation software. Like I used to use MuseScore until like end of my sophomore year, or like beginning of my junior year. And you just play it back and play it back and play it back and play it back all the time and just keep adding on. And then you're just so accustomed to what it sounds like that it almost starts to sound bad afterwards. And the thing is, you can't, that's like another hard thing. You can't let yourself just think it's bad, because you've just been listening to it for hours on end. And it can be really frustrating because you're like, I thought I had this great idea, but like now it's just starting bad, but it's sounding bad. But honestly, it's just that it's just repeating itself and it's just embedded in your head, and it's just really frustrating. It starts to get frustrating, and then a lot of people just throw it away just because they were just tired of it. And that's a problem. Like I said before, just patience. That's what like the biggest thing I have for like whatever process you have, is just keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, when I don't know if something's good, I just get my mom to listen to it.
For me, I'm pretty low key when I'm like making music. I'm very quiet about it. I don't like to, because I don't want to like lead people on of like, oh, I'm writing something and then I just don't finish it, because I have maybe like 8 classical pieces done and like played for and stuff like that, but I have 20 things in like the recycling bin right now, just waiting to be reused again. And so I feel like if I hype it up before I'm even done, then it just like, if I fail, then and then it's just like for nothing. So when I write, I become, until I'm like certain that I'm gonna finish it and that there's a certain deadline and that it's gonna be played, that's when I start like telling people like, oh, I'm writing this or something like that. But when I'm in the process of it, especially in the beginning, I keep myself, like even with my parents, I just keep it low key, like very low key. Sometimes they get kind of mad because I had a premiere at this university, for this choir piece, which my friend wrote, because I'm not very good at lyrics. And so I kept it so like, I was like, hey, I was talking to my friend and I was like, hey, can you like write like a poem for me? And she was like, for what? I'm like, I think I'm just gonna like write some music for it. She's like, okay. And then like maybe 5 months later, 6 months later, I come back and I'm like, hey, so that piece, there's going to be a concert like in a month or so, and I think it would be cool if you came. And so yeah, that was the premiere of it. And so like nobody had any idea that I wrote it besides like the person I worked with, the director of like the college or the university, and it turned out great. But my parents were like, man, I really wish you told me about that. That would have been really cool. Like they were there, but like I told them maybe a month before. I'm like, oh yeah, so there's going to be a concert featuring my piece. And they're like, what? So for that process, I try to be very low key until I'm for certain that it's going to go somewhere. Yeah. So you don't really like do classical composition, but like, do you start off with the piano like classically first and then go into like the producing setting, or is it more just starting with like Logic and then just messing around until you got something?
For like classical music or for like pop?
For producing, yeah.
Yeah, I would just usually go straight into Logic.
Yeah, I feel that too.
'Cause I would just mess around on the piano and then find something I like. Or sometimes I even start with like sounds, because like recently I've gotten really into sound design.
Yeah,
So
same.
I'll just go into Serum and I'll just like mess around with something, and then when I find something, I'll record like a loop and then try to see like what else I can add to
Yeah.
it.
That actually reminds me, for the Berklee College of Music, one of my on my portfolio, I put in Saving Private Ryan. I did an overdub, like a music composition overdub, and so I wanted to like break free and just like use sounds. Like I wanted to pull like a Hans Zimmer type thing, and so I did, because like that movie has like no sound at all, like no music, and so it was perfect for me. And so I was just messing around. I had my drum set, I had some mallets, and I like, or like I like scraped a coin on the cymbal, and then I just put it down like 12 semitones, and then like slowed it down. It was just like this eerie, just like grudge sort of sound, and it was amazing. And so that kind of got me into like, oh, maybe I should start like using sounds more rather than just pure acoustic. Yeah.
I think in a way you can incorporate that into your like classical writing too.
Yeah.
You know, like John Mackey.
Oh yes, definitely. I love John Mackey.
Like he does like the crazy stuff with the garbage cans.
Yeah.
Like I think that's also a way of like sound design, but not in the
Yeah, and
production
that actually
setting.
reminds me. So I just finished writing this piece for trumpet and piano, and I actually incorporated those kinds of sounds. So in the beginning of it, I had the trumpet player play into the piano, and then the piano player put the pedal down. And so when they're done like playing like a line, it like rings that chord, and it's like super cool. And then at the like in the center of it, I tried to notate it, but it was kind of hard to notate. But the center of it, I had the pianist. I don't know if you can see that, but I had like the pianist like hit the strings, the low strings with the pedal on, so it's like this rumbling like wave of just sound, and just going like small, and then like forte, and then piano again, and then like the trumpet just blowing air through. So that was one of the first ones where I incorporated different kinds of sounds into like acoustic sounds into like my classical pieces.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. So right now, because of quarantine, it's gonna be a little rough to like try to record, but I have my friends like looking over it over this week, and hopefully he can play it, and then I can play trumpet for it. But honestly, practicing trumpet has been so hard lately. It's been so hard to just be motivated.
Why?
I think I'm not gonna blame it on my teacher, but because of this quarantine, none of like the stuff I was gonna plan to like play for, like I was in like a lot of orchestras, and we were gonna play like Firebird by Stravinsky, and we were gonna play like A Night on Bear Mountain, and super fun pieces. And then now it's all gone, and so I don't have any like repertoire to like practice. And so now he's just really forcing on fundamentals and just reworking the way I play. And like sure, it's like a cool thing for him to do, and he's hard on me, which is good. But just not having like any music to play, but just like long tones, or like just like these short etudes that just really work on just something, is so unmotivating, and it's like kind of frustrating at times. So like last week I just took a break, and I just didn't like really play trumpet, which is like not really my thing to do, because I really like playing and I really like composing, but like it was so unmotivating just to each week just like more fundamentals, and I don't I don't see myself going anywhere. If anything, I'm like digressing, and that just kind of just really put like, it was just really annoying. So now I gotta go practice again, because my piece might be playing soon, so we'll see.
Yeah, well, I sort of feel the same way. Like I haven't been playing piano. Well, like I haven't been practicing in a while, just because there's not much to like play for. But also like, literally, I hate lessons over Zoom.
Yes, lessons over Zoom
It's
is awful.
yeah, like I would rather like be in a room and like be interacting with my teacher. And so like honestly, I've just kind of lost motivation to like play anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, like a bunch of my concerts got canceled. Like I was supposed
It's
to
so
have a
annoying.
graduation concert today.
I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that. Oh, and I saw the thing on your Instagram about the prom thing. Who's Alec Benjamin?
Oh, he's a singer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a really good singer-songwriter. A lot of his songs revolve around like stories, so he has really, really strong lyrics. And they're always like telling like these stories and stuff. So
I kind of like the ones where it's more like personalized. Like some, like definitely in the pop industry, you have like a writer, and then they put the writer and like they ask like singers to sing it. But like the people who are like, I don't know, like do you know who Dodie is?
yeah.
Yeah, so like her stuff is like way more personalized about like her stories and stuff like that. And instead of just like maybe, I don't know, just like Ed, nothing wrong with Ed Sheeran. I love listening to Ed Sheeran. But like some of like, let's say for example him and just like some of his songs about love, and just like everyone does that. It's like it doesn't have a lot of personal meaning, and that can be like a little bit draining when I'm listening to it, and it just seems just, I don't know, bland. So like those kind of artists who really incorporate a true story, or like just a story that like means that like a lot to them, that really just, I have a lot of respect for people who do that.
For sure. And I mean, like love stories are like, or love songs are sort of going out of
Yeah.
date now. I think for the past like 20-ish years, a lot of people did love songs, even
Yeah.
before that. And like now we're just starting to move away from that because it's so overdone.
It really is. It makes it just sound bland. So like with people like Jacob Collier, Dodie, Alec Benjamin, I've never heard, like I've never played his stuff or like listened to his stuff, and like Wolfpack, like we talked about, they're just incorporating things that just mean true to them instead of just true to the audience in a sense. Like they're writing for them, and they're not writing for the money. They're writing for the people and for them, not for the money. And I just have like a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, same.
I think we might be a little bit out of time, so I think we're gonna like wrap this up a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And so hopefully
Yeah,
like
thank you for having me.
yeah, so hopefully this can like lead on into more episodes and stuff like that. But we'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, so like I said before, I'm Jackson Waters. This is Senaida. Senaida.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And this is episode 1 of The Little Room. And thank you for tuning in.